Anderson, and in this video I'm going to give you 13 tips for buying a guitar. Before we get started, hit the red subscribe button and the notification bell. Number 1, what brand guitar should you buy? I don't know. It's kind of like asking somebody their favorite car, you know. Someone may prefer a Ford pickup, another person may want a Maserati. So the thing is, look at the guitar players you admire and note what guitars they play. Ask your friends and then go into a store and try out different brands. I ended up with this Guild D50 because I went to a music store, played a bunch of guitars. This one, I loved how it sounded, I loved how it felt, and it was in my price range. Ta-da, mine. Number 2, do your research. Before you go out to buy a guitar, Google guitars, different brands, different styles. See what people are saying about them, see what the price range is, and that way you'll get a good idea of what's out there. Number 3, should you buy new or used? It's up to you. Some people like a used guitar because it's more affordable, and sometimes those used guitars have a warmer sound because, you know, they have lived life. So you have to be careful though. Whether you're buying new or used, make sure that you're paying a fair price for it, because if you've done your research, you'll know what the going prices are for some of these guitars. If you've never bought a guitar on your own, if you haven't been playing very long, take someone more experienced with you. That's really important. If you're buying used, know what the going rate is. If you've done your research, you know what that is. And keep in mind that a lot of people ask for more than what a guitar is actually worth. Because what they're thinking is, well, I paid $1,000 for it 5 years ago. I can still ask $1,000 for it because, you know, it's in pristine condition. Well, it doesn't matter. Guitars are like cars. As soon as you drive them off the lot, boom. The difference is vintage, of course. And you really have to know a little bit about instruments in order to buy vintage. If you're looking at vintage instruments, keep in mind that they are going to be more expensive and the price fluctuates. It's just like investing in anything else. Some of them require special care, so you have to keep that in mind too. Having said that, I know some people who swear by pre-war Martins. If you can afford it, knock yourself out. Number 4, get the right kind of guitar. If you're a rocker, buy an electric guitar, modern country electric. With an acoustic steel string instrument like this one, you can play almost any kind of music. You can play almost anything on an electric too. It's just that certain styles really lend themselves to certain kinds of guitars. If you're a folkie, if you play classical music, flamenco, then maybe a classical guitar is for you. Those are the ones with nylon strings. Also look at the size. This is a full-size acoustic guitar, but they also make 3/4 size, so if you have small hands or if you want something that's going to fit in the overhead of a plane, then you might want a 3/4 size guitar. They also make travel guitars. Taylor makes a really nice little travel guitar that fits in the overhead of a plane, fits easily into a car. Sometimes they're great campfire and beach guitars. I don't have an endorsement from Taylor or anything, I just happen to like them. Number 5, play it first. I know a lot of you like to go online, you can get deals online, I get that. But unless you can actually hold an instrument in your hand and play it, how do you know how it's going to feel, how it's going to sound? When I bought this one, I put it through its paces and I played a whole bunch of chords. I probably drove everyone in the music store crazy. But I was going to drop a chunk of change on this beauty, and I wanted to make sure that it was the perfect guitar for me. So, what happens when you find that guitar you think you might be buying? Before you actually slap down that cash, check it out. Here's what you want to do. First, you want to look down the neck from the bridge down to the head. So let's see if I can get this in the frame. So I'm looking down, okay? So what I'm seeing are the strings straight all the way down. The neck is going to be a little farther from the string, closer to the body. Up here it's going to be a little closer. That's normal, so don't freak out if there's a little bit of a difference. There also might be a tiny bit of a curve, and that's okay too, but if there's very much of a curve, that means your neck is bowed and that means you're in big trouble. That's very hard, if not impossible, to fix. And if you're buying a used or a new instrument, I've seen new instruments that have bowed necks. There was a Yahoo, I won't go into detail, but he used to hang his guitars in the window of his store. Who does that? His guitars all had bowed necks and all kinds of stuff wrong with them. Anyway, so check that out. Number 7, look at the bridge. Here's the bridge, okay? Make sure the bridge isn't trying to escape, okay? So a good test is to take a piece of paper and slide it under here. Look at that. My bridge is trying to lift off because see how that piece of paper disappears underneath the bridge? Now, that's very, very small, and actually it's been like this for like 20 years. So I figure it's moving pretty slow. I don't need to worry about it yet, but at some point I do need to take it to luthier. But if you're buying a guitar used or one that's new, make sure that it doesn't have any problems like this to start with. Even worse, if you can slip something thicker underneath the bridge, that is not good. You also want to look at the saddle. That's this thin here too. What is it? Thin piece of, I don't know, I think mine might be bone of some kind. I know I had it replaced a few years ago. Look at the tuning pegs, make sure they're not cracked and trying to pull out. These things are fairly easy to adjust, but you want to make sure that they're in good shape before you buy them. Well, I just covered up my list. So you also want to look at the nut. So that's number 8. Check the nut. That's this thing right here. Make sure it's not loose. Make sure it's supporting the strings. Make sure it's at a good height. So if you can play easily down here, but you need the strength of a ninja to press down here, it could be that your nut needs adjustment. Maybe it's too high, maybe it's the wrong kind of nut, and that's where you need a good luthier or a technician to fix that for you. Number 9, check the tuning pegs, the tuning keys rather. These things right here. Are they loose? Do they pretty much stay in place? Do you need the strength of a ninja to turn them? There's something wrong with that. Sometimes used guitars, I have a student right now who can't turn a couple of the strings of her guitar because it's old and she's never had it looked at. But if you're buying a guitar, you don't want something that's stuck, okay? And you don't want to like spray WD-40 on it. You don't want a nice guitar and, you know, ruin it that way because if you get WD-40 on the finish, sometimes it can whack out the finish. Anyway, if the tuning key is a little bit loose, sometimes you can tighten it. Now, I know you can't see it, but there's a little screw in the end of each one of my tuning pegs, and you can put a screwdriver in and tighten it just a tiny bit. Be careful, they're really easy to strip. So what else do you need to look at? Number 10, look for cracks and dings. Now, a few dings, especially in a used guitar, that just shows character. That's probably not going to affect the sound of the guitar. But if you're buying a new guitar and there's some dings in it, that could be a negotiating point. You can say, you know, there's a little ding here, can you come down $50? That's a good thing. Cracks are another thing altogether. Crack is usually a sign that there's something wrong with it structurally. So you want to look it over pretty closely. Especially look in the back where oftentimes they put two pieces together, and this is a likely place for a crack to happen, especially with humidity, with excessive heat, with all kinds of things that can happen to a guitar. You can also look for cracks where the neck meets the body. Up here, I mean, there's all kinds of places where a crack could happen, and sometimes those are easy to fix, and sometimes those can be really bad news. Make sure that you're looking inside. When you shake it, do you hear a rattling? Could be that somebody just dropped a pick in there, but it could be that one of the braces are loose. And again, that could be an easy to fix thing, or it could be a negotiating point. If you're buying a new guitar and it's got a loose brace, you could say to the clerk, hey, that brace is loose, can you fix it? Throw that in with the price. And very often they can do that. Play up the neck and check the intonation, all right? So, do this. Take one of the strings, play it open, play the next fret, the next fret. So each one of these should sound clear. They shouldn't sound dead or buzzy. They should sound in tune. You can hear if one of the frets is going to be a little off tune or a lot off tune. Now my guitar's in pretty good shape, so I'm not hearing any of that, but in any guitar that you buy, that's really important to do. A really great quick check is to check the octaves. So look for the 2 dots that are on the top of most of the necks of most guitars, and you'll hear the octave. So if I pluck the open string, there's an E. If I press it down right there, can you hear that octave? Okay, and you can do that with all the strings. A, D, G, B, and then E. Okay, so that's the 5, 7, 9, 12th fret. I only counted the dots, that's why I wasn't counting in sequential order. I really do know how to count. All right, number 12. You've decided on the guitar that you want. All right, if you're buying it from a store, ask if they'll set it up. If you're buying it used, you'll have to take it somewhere to get it set up. Well, what's a setup? Well, a setup is they will adjust the action to make sure that the action, which is how far the strings are from the neck, is right for you. And they'll put a new set of strings on it, and they'll check it over just to make sure that everything is solid and not rattling around. Make sure that you get the right gauge strings. If you're a beginner, have them put on light or medium light strings. If you've been playing for a while, you know what gauge strings you want, and just make sure that you get the right kind that you want. Number 13, the final tip for buying a guitar. See if they'll throw in something extra. Maybe without any extra money, they'll throw in a case, or a capo, or some picks, or chocolate cake. I don't know. That's something to consider. With this guitar, I got a case, which was really nice. And also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but ask about warranties. Some manufacturers offer lifetime warranties. This one came with one, and it really came in handy one time when it needed some serious work done. And like insurance that you buy for anything else, it does not cover negligence. So, if you left your Guild D50 out in the rain, they're not going to fix it for free. And who would do that? But anyway, so there you go. 13 tips for buying a guitar. Happy guitar shopping. Please check out my other lessons. I have lots of lessons for beginning and intermediate guitar players, as well as ukulele and mandolin. Go to jamieanderson.com if you want to contact me for private lessons via Skype. It's also where you find out more about my original music. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot to me.